Hello, everyone. Welcome to Libraries in Response. This is session 127, 6. I'll get it in a second here. 127 sessions that we've been doing since March of 2020 in response to the health crisis of the COVID pandemic. And we were all asking, well, what is this? What's a library if the building is closed? It's not nothing, but what? So this kind of started the conversation. First of all, turn the Wi-Fi router out the window. Even if the building is closed, you can provide a connectivity service to people who can come near the library. And it just rolled on from that. There was then the social crisis created by the Floyd murder a few months later. And then there was the economic crisis, of course, of the planet being kind of civilization being sort of shut down all at once. Nothing like that has ever happened that I'm aware of. Planet-wide reaction to something that happened almost overnight. I mean, world wars take months to develop, but this was just like instant. And on from the economic crisis, and there was the political crisis, and there's the ever-present climate crisis, which is relevant because we just had Earth Day a few days ago, and then the AI crisis, which we consider definitely a crisis. It's a different kind, but it's global, and it's happening very quickly. And then we have a new political crisis. So it just doesn't stop. We've adopted this, not adopted, but we've taken in this term created by others, a polycrisis, where all these different crises are happening simultaneously and not just in parallel, but in conjunction and reinforcing each other to amplify the circumstances, the dire circumstances. And the point is that libraries have a special role to play in their communities who are trying to cope with these crises, the people in their communities. We are the Gigabit Libraries Network. My name is Don Means. I'm your host today. Well, also with our partner in production of Libraries in Response is the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions based in The Hague. And I see Stephen Weiber, the head of public policy for IFLA, is on at the helm. IFLA records and posts these to our Libraries in Response YouTube channel, where all prior sessions are found for your viewing. I don't want to say pleasure, entertainment, but for your whatever you want, whatever purpose you have. It's been getting more popular. The recordings are now more popular than the actual registrations by a factor of 2. We're approaching 20,000 views of our sessions. So this is another one. These are our speakers today, Rossana, Gino, and Federico, who are the editors, curators, and also authors of this compendium of the history of science fiction, libraries in science fiction. We won't have Federico with us today. Unfortunately, he had a death in his family and he can't make it today. Our sympathies go out to Federico. We hope he and his family are doing okay. It's a tough thing. We'll get back to our guests momentarily. This is our illustration of kind of what we're about. This is kind of the poor circumstance of the earth under siege by these new 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. This illustration, this brilliant illustration, was rights to which were given to us by Cal, the cartoonist for The Economist magazine, who was a guest. And we just think this so captures the circumstance. And of course, we see libraries behind the earth, around the earth, supporting the earth, trying to hold off these catastrophes. Okay, we've got a, there we go. This is kind of a parade of memes, if you will, visual memes. That was the first one. This is the second one. There's the Swiss Army knife of communities. This is how we see libraries, is they do more things for more people than any other institution that we have. Now, this may not be the best pair of scissors in the world or the best corkscrew or even the best knife or bottle opener, but they're all in one place. And that's the point, is that all these services are available in one place. It's just stunning how much libraries have to do and are being called upon, of course, every day to do more, even more. And it's a challenge, this mission creep, as they're describing it in the library world. Where do we stop? Well, librarians seem to be incapable of saying no. They'll help anybody with anything that they ask for, even marginally legal things like, documentation for people that are in a country. They trust the library to help them with information that's neutral and helpful, and they won't get busted. So they're very, very special, as you would all know. But we found this, or it's came to us. This was a good symbol for libraries. This is our final image meme of the day. This is a photo that was taken here where I am in Sausalito, California. As you see, in 2008, this was a fire. This is an island in the San Francisco Bay that was on fire. And we looked out the window, and this is what we saw. And in front of this fire is the Maltese Falcon. This is a 300-foot long sailboat, a super yacht, as they call it. And the masts are this is automatic. This is an incredible piece of technology and it's really tall. They have to wait for low tide to sail under the Golden Gate Bridge because it's just nearly 200 feet tall. It's about the height of an aircraft carrier, and it's all automated. One person can sail this thing from their bedroom in Palo Alto. It's just phenomenal. The point is, this is an example of the state of technology that humans have developed, and in the backdrop of the Earth on fire. This is kind of our symbol here, is that we're spending our energies innovating things like this super yacht instead of putting out this fire. So that's it. Oh, and the image we have rights to because we knew a photographer and had him come down, professional, and take this image, for which he's given us the rights to use it. So we appreciate that. To our sponsors and our supporters, we wish to thank the New Jersey, Texas, and Washington state libraries, who are longtime associates of the Gigabit Libraries Network and supporting us this year. We so appreciate, as well as Mission Telecom, a commercial venture that is also in the same vein of connectivity for anchor institutions, a longtime ally. We thank them so much. We also thank the Institute for Museum and Library Services. We especially thank them right now because they're under siege by the current administration that they're part of. They've been closed. They've been effectively shuttered. All grants have been terminated. All staff have been placed on leave. It's a mess, particularly because the majority of the budget of this very small agency go to the state libraries. They support their own projects, which this is a list of projects that we've obtained support from IMLS to fund, but most of theirs go through the state libraries, and to the tune of a third or a half of the state library budgets have come from this agency. So there's a lot of mayhem going on right now, as you can imagine, on how to respond. But it's just one corner of the political circumstance that we're all facing out here. This, we think, is just a great quote. It's grounded in the principle that informed, educated citizenry is key to a free society. Well, absolutely. And I mean, maybe it's obvious, but at the same time, it seems like the shuttering of America's educational institutions is somehow a priority, and it goes exactly against this notion. And it's not just for democracy. I say just for democracy. It's not only for democracy. It's also, these are the institutions that generate intellectual capital on a large scale, from the most advanced research universities to the humble public community library, where anyone can pursue their goals of learning and enjoyment. So it's a crisis for sure. And our libraries, we're all trying to support each other in dealing with all this. So to the point, to our speakers. And so I'm going to introduce Rossana and have her take us out on this this presentation, this discussion today. So welcome, Rossana. You are up, and please also, I forgot to mention earlier, please introduce yourself and kind of how you came to be where you are, and a little bit of personal background for you and Gino, if you would. We'd just like to know a little bit more about who you are, not just what you do, this great work you've done. So please take us away. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm now an assistant professor at the University of Florence. After being an academic librarian for some 20 years, a lot of time, and and also my focus in research is on technology, but also digital libraries, but also I have a field of study for a long time about what we need in Italy call literary librarianship, which is the way in which literature, but also cinema and comics see libraries. So libraries and librarians in fiction, we can say generally, which is an important, can I say, way of studying and seeing how people look at libraries. So I can maybe ask Gino to present himself, and then if you agree, I will just talk a bit about the contents of the book, just to give an idea of what is libraries and librarians in fiction and in science fiction. Sorry.
Great. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Rossana. It's very nice to be here with you today. I am a full professor of digital humanities at Roma Tre University. It's one of the University of Rome. You can see the background, which is the official background of our university for all the webinars, and since it is installed in our Zoom, it will pop out even when it is not an official conference of the university. I teach digital humanities. My background is philosophical. My studies were originally on the history of modal logic, the concept of possibility between Middle Age and Leibniz. But then slowly I moved to the use of digital tools within the humanities. And since in Italy we have many chairs on digital humanities in the universities, but we don't have an administrative section of digital humanities, and most of the people working on digital humanities are connected with the field of library and information science. So that's why I am also quite interested in libraries and in information sciences. I'm also an old science fiction fan. This explains my interest for libraries and librarians in science fiction, but I will discuss this later after Rossana gave us a short introduction to the book and its chapters.
Great.
Yeah, okay. I just add that my background is also on studies in literature in English and American French literature, so my interest is generally also in literature, and so the topic of libraries and literature is the best for me. It's very interesting. And so in a almost casual way, we with Gino decided to try and explore this topic that we call, as I said, literary librarianship, but in a specific field, which is science fiction. So we asked people, friends and colleagues that we knew were in a way interested or passionate about science fiction, without giving us special topic, but asking generally. And so we collected some examples, some contributions from various authors with different backgrounds. There are librarians and library science scholars, historians, sociologists, also the directors of the Science Fiction Museum in Torino. And so we have contributions which have different point of views, different approaches. And the book starts, and I will share my slides that were supposed to go automatically, but they don't. So I will try to. The book, this is the cover, was edited by Gino, Federico Meschini, and me, and it's a collection of various authors. And we have an introduction by Carlo Pagetti, who is a scholar of English and American literature and science fiction. Is one of the most important experts of science fiction in Italy. Can you see the slides, first of all?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, fine. So from the introduction, we can see how many examples there are of libraries and librarians in science fiction. He quote a lot of books, a lot of stories, and this is only a small part of a huge amount of examples that we could make of libraries and librarians in science fiction. Then we have a couple of contributions. I will go through the book in the order of the chapters. I wrote down all of them, so I won't forget anyone. And we have a couple of chapters about focus on technological aspects. First of all, Gino Roncaglia chapter, which is particularly about artificial intelligence, and talking about some books and a classic like Snow Crash, but he will talk about that later. Then there is a contribution by me, which is a selection of examples of the way in which technology, starting from automation to artificial intelligence, is presented in science fiction in relation to libraries and librarians, of course. So starting from automaton to robots to artificial intelligence. I will talk more about that later, maybe. Then we have a chapter by Claudio Forziati, who discusses two books, which are The Third Force. Okay, this is one. The Third Force, a book published in 1993 by Mark Landau, and another book which is an Italian author, Giorgio De Maria, and the book is The 20 Days of Turing. And in this chapter, in these books, and also in some stories that he talk about taken from Amazing Stories, which is the American magazine that is considered to have launched science fiction in 1926 when it was founded. And so Claudio talked about these books and these stories, which give and show a dark side of libraries, because they are dystopias. So we can see libraries with their darker side, which is typical of many works of science fiction. And this is the images are taken from the book. They are a cover of the book treated, or images that we inserted in the book. Then we have Paolo Bertetti, who examines the library in post-apocalyptic literature, especially in RTD-B's by George Stewart, a book from published in 1947, and a chronicle for a canticle, for Leibowitz by Walter Miller, published in 1959. Then we have a chapter by Lucia Sardo, who analyzes counterclock words by Philip Dick, in which we have a library that instead of preserving books, destroys them, erases memory instead of preserving memory. Then we have the chapter by Gino, in which he talks among other works of Snow Crash. And then we have the chapter by Silvia Casolari and Davide Monopoli, who discuss a novel set in Turin in 2073, which is called In 2073 by Agostino della Sala Spada, and the speculative story La fin des livres, The End of Books, which was written by Octave Zan and published in 1895, with the particular feature of having in the first edition the illustrations by Alberto Robida, that you can see here, and that he was a major figure, of course, in illustrations, but also in early European proto-science fiction. As you can see, he imagined in 19th century a library and the future of books, like in this image, and a different way of manufacturing books, and the automatic library that you can see in this image. Then we have a chapter by Enrica Salvatori, who analyzes the library in Star Trek, and also underlining the recurring ambiguity between libraries and archives that we have not only in science fiction, but generally in literature and fiction, talking about libraries, librarians. Here are some other images from her chapter. And then we have two chapters about comics. The first of all is by Matteo Gallier, and it's about Nathan Never. And the second one is by Federico Meschini, and it's about non-mimetic comics. And you can see some of the images taken from his chapter, and of course characters that you know. Okay, going to our librarian Barbara Gordon, and finally we have a chapter which talks about science fiction collection. So we, in most of the book, we talked about the image of libraries and librarians in science fiction. And finally, we have a report, we can say, of the most important collections of science fiction that there are in public or private libraries in Italy, of course. And so I will stop here and give maybe the floor to Gino, and maybe we come back later.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I think first of all, I think that can be interesting to discuss is why science fiction and the libraries. Why libraries and librarians are so important for science fiction and within science fiction literature, because they are really quite present and relevant for science fiction. I will not discuss the widely debated question of how to define science fiction, but one of the core issues within science fiction is what we call speculative fiction, taking an assumption which can be about the future, which can be about scientific development. There is also within science fiction a discussion of more human aspects and questions, how our being humans changes in time, and how humans will be in the future. And for all those topics, information is very important, and the handling of information, the work of people who preserve information, who help information to disseminate is very important. I will just give one example, which is probably the best known one, Isaac Asimov. We don't have a chapter on Isaac Asimov in this book, but I've written on Isaac Asimov and libraries elsewhere, and probably the best known series of books by Asimov, the Foundation trilogy, which is actually started as a trilogy, but there are later on Asimov added more volumes to this Foundation series. And within the Foundation series by Asimov, there are two places and which are central, very, very important. One is the Library of the Galactic Empire, the Trantor Library, and the other one is the Encyclopedia. All this series of books by Asimov somehow deals with the Trantor Library and the Encyclopedia. And it's quite interesting to see the problems which Asimov sees in the use of libraries in the distant future. They are quite similar to the problems we have in libraries today. So it's really amazing to see how important, the relevance that Asimov gives to libraries. Asimov himself, he was a son of Russian immigrants to the States, and his parents had a sort of grocery shop, so they were not rich. And Asimov, in many places, says that his library card was the single most important thing in his life. It was because of the library card that he was able to grow as a writer, first as a reader, an avid reader, then as a writer. And this relevance of libraries is really a constant in all his work. This is just an example. Asimov is one of the best known science fiction writers of the classic era, the golden era of science fiction. In my paper here for this book, I discuss the relationship between libraries, librarianship, and artificial intelligence, which is a relevant, very relevant topic for today, seen through science fiction. What is the science fiction had or has to say about the relationship between libraries and artificial intelligence? This can be interesting because before becoming something which is familiar, maybe even too much familiar today in our everyday life, artificial intelligence was somehow a sort of forecast or a theme for many science fiction books. I deal with two books. One is No Crash by Neil Stephenson. It's one of the best known books of the science fiction of the 90s of the last century. It's a very good book also from the point of view of writing. Neil Stephenson is a very good writer, so even the style of the book is very good. And in this book, there is an AI librarian, which is somehow a central figure of the book. It's quite interesting how Stephenson, the kind of role that Stephenson gives to his AI librarian, because it's somehow the librarian keeps saying, okay, I'm just an artificial intelligence. I don't really understand. I just collect information. But then it's very subtle in its or his ideas, discussions. So it's a somehow not just a figure which is central for the book, but it's also a figure that is seen with a lot of sympathy. One of the academic paper on Snow Crash says that the librarian in Snow Crash is a sort of compendium of humanity, our human nature seen through the most relevant profession, the most relevant competencies, which is that of collecting information, preserving information, and using information to speculate in an interesting way. So this is Snow Crash. It's a very nice book about. It's a sort of somehow dystopic future in which finance and big industries somehow took the place of governments and countries, and this sort of digital dystopia in which the librarian is a sort of guide to preserve humanity. And the second book is not very well known. It's probably, I would say it's surely of a lower literary quality, but it's also quite interesting. It's by two scientists, Ted and Bob Rockwell. Rockwell was a father and a son. The father was one of the most important US scientists in the field of development of nuclear energy, both for civilian and for military use. And the son was one of the, unfortunately, he died quite young, was one of the first to work on virtual reality. So he wasn't working on information technologies. And their book, it's curious because it's about a virtual librarian, a woman librarian. I must say it's full of stereotypes about woman librarians. It's in a way instructive also because of the stereotypes. It's this there is this idea, this artificial virtual librarian is a wonderful girl in contrast with real librarians who are living books. It's full of stereotypes, but it's quite interesting the way in which this virtual librarian develops through the book. There is an idea which is one of the ideas which are most discussed today, the idea that artificial intelligence may be an emergent intelligence in artificial intelligence programs, or is maybe an emergent feature. And this presentation of the way in which slowly, first starting with just collecting information, helping people to collect or to find information, the virtual librarian slowly develops her own personality. It's quite interesting in a way, even if it is not great literature. I think there are different aspects which are interesting here. One is the idea of which kind of librarianship we will have in a future in which artificial intelligence has a larger role in mediate as a sort of information mediator. And the other one is how artificial intelligent librarians are seen as somehow preserving and representing some of the most important features of real librarians. In a way, they are a sort of mirror, even if somehow distorted or artificial mirror of our profession of actual librarianship. So I think it's interesting to explore this feature. There are just two examples. We could give many other examples of some of which are dealt with in other papers in the book of libraries and librarianship within science fiction. And I think it's for librarians, it's interesting to see how the profession is seen projected in the future, sometimes in the distant future, and how their profession is seen as dealing with some of the hot topics, just like artificial intelligence, for the world of today and tomorrow.
Very good.
Yes, and also, would you like to talk, Don? Okay. Yes, I think also that libraries and libraries in science fiction are important to study because science fiction is not actually about the future, or it's about the present. Most of science fiction talk about the society of the author of science fiction. This is quite different, for example, from previous utopias like in the Enlightenment, where there were societies imagined. In science fiction, it's mainly talking about the society of the author, and also a way for criticizing society. And we can see that, as Gino said, libraries represent, and librarians represent humanity and critical thinking and memory, which in many settings of science fictions are seen as a threat. They are books and libraries are destroyed or are in a way set apart. They are forbidden because libraries and books help to see a different society from that of the book, but also a real society. And this is also partly the topic of my chapter. As I said, I pick up some examples of the way in which technology and automation is related to science fiction and to libraries and librarians, starting from I focus on the some coming from the English-speaking world. For example, I talk about Edward Morgan Foster, The Machine Stops, which is a book published in 1909, where there is a society in which people live underground. They live under the Earth's surface, and individuals live in cells. They are separated and they avoid physical contact with other people. They live in cells in which you can push a button to have food, music, another button to have clothing. So in a way, it's also an anticipation of the Internet of Things, in a way. And in this society, books are relics, are some, in a way, separated. They are hidden from the society, and is a society controlled by a machine. And despite books are seen as relics of an age of waste, an age of reading in which people destroyed the forests to print books, which is a kind of anticipation also of
sustainability and topics we talk about today. Anyway, this society based on machines lives because of a book, which is the book of the machine. Anyway, so they need a book to know which buttons to push and how the system works. And also another example I talk about is We, one of the classics of science fiction, published by Eugene Zamyatin between 1919 and 1920. In Russia, he was censored and he was he had many problems for his writings. And in this book, he describes a future society, which is called one state, ruled by a benefactor, and citizens have no names, they are just units. They wear identical uniforms, consume chemical food derived from petroleum, and they live in glass houses. So in a way, to me, an anticipation of today's lives that we display in a way on social media. And also in this case, books are hidden. They are in an old ancient house, which is the only colored part of the society, because the rest is a kind of gray uniform color. And books are colored. Books are red, green, orange. There is a movie taken from this book in 1982. You can find some scenes on YouTube. And also reminds me of another movie, an American movie that you might know, which is Pleasantville, by Gary Ross, in 1998, in which there is a society completely in black and white, and until they discover the library, and they queue in front of the library to enter and take books. And when they queue, when they found books in the library, they start to become colored, and the movie starts to become colored. And books are empty, completely empty. But when they start reading in the library and looking for books in the library, books start to be filled with words and illustrations and picture and so on. And also another example is RUR, Rossum's Universal Robots, a play by the Czech writer Karel Čapek, published in 1920, which is the work that introduced the word robot to the modern lexicon, which is derived from a Czech word, which means
forced labor or servitude. And Rossum's Universal Robots is a factory, is the name of the factory in which robots are produced, humanoid robots, and they are produced in a way so advanced that they start feeling, having emotions, and also they start having a class consciousness, so that they realize that they are exploited by the owners of the factory, and there is a rebellion. And the leader of this rebellion is the librarian robot, which is called Radius, and is described as having a brain larger than the others, the biggest brain in the world, and that he was set in the library so that he could learn everything. And actually learned everything, and he learned also this consciousness that led him and all robots to rebel, to revolt, and the rebellion almost wipes out humanity. But in the rebellion, the book that explains how robots are built is lost. And so documentation, the memory, the culture, the way to build robots is not available anymore. And the Society of Robots is, of course, will disappear because they cannot reproduce themselves. They need instructions to be built. And I won't
me, Rossana.
anymore. Okay.
Rossana, I'm sorry, we lost your image. Your camera maybe is off. Okay.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Everything. You both have opened up so many doors of discussion and thinking. You've lost you again, but we could hear you. We heard all of that about the robots. I had no idea about that. For me, it's been a lifelong trail of pursuit of information through science fiction, and science fiction deals with the largest topics. I mean, the very biggest topics: cosmology, humanity. The thing that always struck me about it was that many stories involve, alien species. And it was fascinating. These writers can actually write first person from a completely fictitious species. But it also gives a perspective on humanity as a whole. That's like the day the Earth stood still, all these stories where somebody arrives from somewhere else in the universe using some kind of faster than light travel, which is a different topic. But then humanity kind of comes together in a crisis to deal with this. They see themselves as one group, not as the many groups that we see ourselves every day and have great conflict over. I always thought that was super important. Contribution of science fiction was the kind of binding of humanity and dealing with something beyond. So I'm glad you mentioned AI, Gino. It does seem like it's a convergence of technology and librarianship in I don't know if we want to say an ultimate way, but we were talking about the Black Mirror, where the librarian there is an AI, and that we can imagine each of us with our own AI librarian, our information consultant, personal, and at the storage levels in computing now allows to put an enormous amount of data in our pockets. We don't have to have an internet to have it. So this development is really I think, super significant. The intersection of librarianship and this phenomena of AI that has, you're right, it's been, this has been a trope of science fiction for a long time. AI, Heinlein was someone who just constantly invented AIs to help his characters. His ship was an AI, the AI, and the moon is a harsh mistress, a great story.
Yeah, that's I think also relevant for librarianship, because after all, what the AI in the moon is a harsh mistress does is collect information, organize information, give information to the characters of the story. So it's true. Heinlein is one of the masters of the.
Right. I came to Heinlein through when I was a teenager. I freaked out reading 1984. It was just a horror for me as a high school student. That took me over to Ayn Rand and the objectivist approach, and all of that. Atlas Shrugged, and then that took me to Heinlein, who was kind of in that ilk, a large part. But then my first assignment in university was A Brave New World. I'm still working on that one, but that then became kind of a competing view of the future between 1984 and A Brave New World, which gives me my question: why does it seem that most science fiction are dystopian? They seem much more popular than utopian. Is it because it's easier to picture a disaster than, or it's more exciting to have a disaster? Why do you suppose it's definitely true, right?
I can start, and then Rossana may. Yes, it is definitely true, especially now, because after all, in the golden age of science fiction, often we have a positive representation of the future. For instance, Asimov is basically optimist. Star Trek is basically it's a sort of optimist, not dystopian vision of the future. While today we have prevailing, just as before, maybe in the years immediately before the Second World War, we had a prevailing negative dystopian view. And this is, of course, it's something which is a concern, the way in which we see our future and the kind of problems, of dilemmas that we project on our future are basically dystopian. And this is true. And in a way, it is interesting to see that somehow since libraries and information are seen as a sort of danger for a dystopian future, libraries and information is an agent which may help to avoid a future which is too much dystopian. We do have enough dystopia, I think, in our world today, but libraries can prevent, I think, to have even worse dystopian scenarios. So it's something which truly, yes, but maybe Rossana has something to add on this.
And to Rosanna's point, it's science fiction helps us see the future. The present through a lens of a imaginary future. That's, I think, super powerful as a literary technique. And in the speculative fiction you also mentioned has, I think, been a really important part of science fiction. In that, well, Arthur Clarke speculated the geostationary satellites before they were actually then created. So there's a lot of science in science fiction that, it creates this basis of a plot. You have some actual scientific basis for a speculation, and then you go from there and build a story off of that. And it's just super fascinating. We've talked about the why of librarians in science fiction. maybe you could say a little more about, is this just a natural fit, or is it just something that a number of people have taken an interest in and explored because they do, or is it really a natural kind of occurrence between these phenomena?
Yeah, of course, I think it's natural because, as also Gino said, especially from the beginning of the 20th century with wars and so on, science fiction has become almost dystopias, and in utopias and dystopias, books and libraries are a kind of link with the reality also, and they represent the memory, the identity of a community. So if you want, this is not so much actually science fiction, to be honest. If you want to control a society, you need a society without books and without libraries, because books and libraries are means to form a critical thinking and to see the possibility of different ideas of different worlds. So that's why in many societies, especially dystopias, which are controlled by machines or by a central power, political of any kind, libraries are afraid, are menaced, because they allow people to see and to think critically. And so this is, I think it's not science fiction, because it's the reason why we have a lot of censorship in libraries today. Is in actual libraries, in reality, we have many cases, and the American Library Association, I know that keep trace of all cases of censorship, but we have in Italy, we have in many countries around the world attempts to ban books and to say what people should read, and so should think and what they shouldn't. So in this way, libraries are very powerful, and the governors know that libraries are powerful. And so that's why in science fiction they can hidden and or destroy libraries.
Not only science fiction, in actuality,
Yeah.
it's authoritarian 101. As the Asimov story, Gino, is really touching. The fact that such a brilliant person in a humble beginning could ascend through the vehicle of the library to such heights makes one wonder how many people out there could be Asimovs if they had a library, if they had a vehicle to explore their imagination and their interests, and don't. But hopefully they will, as I believe IFLA calculates that there are roughly 400,000 public libraries in the world. And that's a lot, but it's not a tremendous number given, 8 billion people. But our view is that there should be a library in every neighborhood. Certainly, you could define a community as the geography around a library, and I think you would have a good case for that. We're coming up on the end of the hour, and this has just been so full of stuff. Thank you, Matt, for your observation. Matt says dystopic science fiction is probably more entertaining and easier to build stories around. I think that's true, because it will tend to evolve around a heroic character, facing the odds and upon which so much will depend. And it's more dramatic, I think, than utopian, which are kind of boring, really, in a lot of ways. But also the other utopian vision that I think we got that was not Star Wars, which is classic kind of, suppression thing, is Star Trek. This was a running conversation. Star Trek was a utopian vision of a world, but I think it was brought together by the fact that there are other worlds, which requires travel greater than the speed of light. And this has always been my problem with science fiction and FTL. It's just, maybe it's possible, but no one has really come up with any kind of an idea about how it's actually possible. But it's necessary to write all these stories. And the only one that I saw, if I could just divert a little bit here, was a novel by David Brin, great science fiction writer, called Existence. Modest title, but in Existence, he conquers the dilemma of these immense distances by creating AIs in little pellets. That the technology of this is then they load them, whoever invented in the first place, load them with AIs, and then launch them off by the billions out, just scattered them out across the cosmos. And they would end up somewhere, make themselves known in a place like Earth that could interact with them. And then they would offer the technology to join and load their own AIs and make more of these pellets and send them out all over the place. It's slow, but when you think about how much time there is overall, it could work. Even if the original civilizations are long gone, by billions or millions of years, hundreds of millions of years. I thought that was fascinating, that somebody could solve the faster than light travel and actually have interplanetary, intergalactic species. So we're at the hour. I'd like to invite each of you to just make a closing statement, and we will wrap this wonderful session up. So, Gino, why don't you give us a closing notion of what this is all about?
Yes, thank you. Maybe a closing observation is about how important librarianship and collections of information are for AI today. Basically, all AI systems are trained on the content of libraries. This is explicit in the case of Google, because Google Books, the digitization of the project Google Books is the core of the training of the Google systems, AI systems, but it's also true for a lot of other systems. The first core of information on which the first AI systems were trained was a collection of Smashwords books. Smashwords was a sort of a platform where you can self-publish books, and this was the very first collection on which AI was trained. Of course, there is also a lot of web pages, but books are very, very important for AI training, and all the discussion on copyright and AI today are mainly linked with the use of books and scientific papers for training AI systems. So knowing how information is organized, and it's very, very important for contemporary AI, and this is another aspect of the relevance of librarianship for our future.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. And you remind me that there's a movement for public AI infrastructure.
Absolutely, and this is very important. For instance, knowing which corpus has been used in training AI system is very important, and it's one of the things of which, for instance, the European legislation is a little bit forward in this field, because there is the expectation that for critical AI systems, the training corpus should be public.
Yes, and the group leading in public AI are embracing the library as and multiple roles, curator and emblem of a commons value and the rest of it. It's really exciting development. Gina, please, Rossana, please, final word.
Yes, the final word is that libraries are institutions to be preserved and to be sustained, because they are a place of lights against dark. And this reminds me of Stranger Things. Do you know the TV series Stranger Things, which is set in a dark and horrible and where incredible things happens? And do you remember how they fight the dark? It's by going to the library. So this is a leitmotiv in science, not only in science fiction, but in literature for a long time. It's been for a long time. Libraries are places of light against obscurity, against darkness, and they are common goods.
Beautiful, wonderful. Thank you so much for that, and so true. And thank you for being here, both of you. And please send our regards to your colleague and their
Thank you.
difficult moment. This recording will be up in a day, by Monday at the latest, on the Libraries in Response YouTube channel, where we'll join the other 126 sessions that are also available as our little archive, our little library of sessions that we've created. And we hope you'll come back, because we actually, on AI, we've got a session coming up in 2 weeks on the spatial web, which we've had on before, and also, well, it'll be building trust with AI, or trusting AI, however we kind of come up with the final title on it. It'll be really fascinating. Two brilliant people working in this area in different ways will be on. So until then, thank you all. Thank you again, Gino and Rossana. Please come back. One last question. Compendium is translated into English, other languages?
We don't have plans to translating, but we are open to.
Okay.
It is a possibility.
Great.
It would be great, beautiful. So if you have any idea about a publisher or translator, we can find a translator, but maybe a publisher that can publish it.
Okay, excellent.
Would be nice.
Mille grazie.
Grazie. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all.
All right. So long. Thank you, everyone. Come back.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.